Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to another Fresh CFO, a Beyond the Numbers podcast. This one's a little bit different. This Beyond the Numbers podcast, I'm really excited today. I'll be joined by Suzana Rodriguez Griffin, one of the most influential people in my career. Today's title and topic is going to be about 12 rounds of business success. If this is your first time coming to a live or a stream that we're doing, my name's Chris Ortega. I'm the CEO of Fresh FP&A. And most importantly, more than that, I'm Suzana is my boxing coach, and she has taught me so much. Really excited for this conversation. We're going to be talking about business. We're going to be talking about all the great things that you got going on at SRG, all the great things that you got going on at your new boxing promotional company. But before we get started, Suzana, tell a little bit of the viewers, everybody, a little bit about yourself, background, and a little bit about that.
Okay, so my name is Suzana Rodriguez Griffin, aka Coach. I have been in boxing for 20 years, and I have owned SRG Boxing Gym here in Indianapolis. Our address is 5346 West 79th Street. I've owned this facility for 12 years, which is amazing. We've kind of pushed ourselves out of our box, out of our seams, and I have been a national champion and a state champion on multiple occasions. And currently, I just kickstarted Jefa Promotions, which is a woman-owned promotion business, specifically in boxing, obviously. I'm the Indiana State's first Latina professional fighter. And we're kind of, we're stirring the pot so well that it's time to bust out. And that's where we are here today.
Yeah. And I think like the first question, Suzana, that I just want to like lead everybody with is like, that's a pretty big accomplishment, right? Being one of the first Latina boxing promotion companies, right? When you look at this profession, it's so boxing in is of its nature, right? It's solely such a male dominated business. It's such a male dominated background. So my first question to you and like leading off, what made you want to start this? Like, what was it? What conversations? What got you down the road to starting La Jefa Promotions?
So what got me started in boxing or started in my promotion company?
In your promotion company.
Okay. As a female fighter in a male-dominated sport, and this can actually reflect into business, but for boxing, it has been a challenge to get into the show, right? Lots of knocks, lots of requests because you need the promoter to put you on their card. And a lot of denials, and as a female, the women are kind of clutch. We're the second opportunity, if at all, right? We're the last ones to be provided that slot. So lots of door knocks, not a lot of responses, and I was kind of tired of waiting. I'm getting older. I'm 39, which in the female fight game really isn't that old, but I'm still almost 40. So I had to go ahead and create my own door, create my own business, create my own production company. So not only did I build up my own building, but I've put all the doors in there and all the windows. I've set it up so that not just myself, but other opportunities are there for local fighters, especially for women.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it. And I think to me, like one of the most important things that you talked about was breaking down. So many times, so many people don't start that road because it's like, oh man, like I'm going to be the minority, or I'm not going to have like this opportunity to be able to do this, or like a lot of times what stops them is all the stereotypes and all the things in front of them, right? But you busted down those doors and said, hey, I'm going to go after this. I remember us having a conversation last year about this, and we were out, we had a nice dinner, we caught up. It was me, you, and Amy, another boxer on the team, and we caught up and we just had this like great idea. And I think like seeing your journey from an idea that we had to like execution, right? And to me, like that is like one of the biggest rewards that you get. It's through the journey of that process, right? Like it went from an idea to like you getting your commissions license and all. Like it's been great seeing the entire road that you've gone down. And May 11th is actually going to be the round one event, where
Yeah.
Fresh FP&A is going to be a sponsor, and really looking forward to that. So let's dive deeper into that. If you were to give, I guess, like some things that you've learned around, like what gave you that confidence? What gave you that clarity to say, man, this is what I'm going to pull the trigger? Because a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people probably watching this, they don't really take that leap of faith. So what was it about you doing this? What was it, the catalyst to say, you know what, I'm going to go after this and I'm not going to let this stop me?
There's a lot. That's a very compact question, and let's kind of break it down a little bit with it. Fear is real, right? The fear
Facts.
within yourself, the fear of failure, the fear of getting out there and just embarrassment, whatever the case is, just failure as a whole. Honestly, I probably should have done this like a decade ago. But sometimes you get so focused in your box, no pun intended with a ring, but you're in the groove, day-to-day process, and before you know it, the month is gone, and then the year is gone, and then now you've got a whole decade that's passed you by. It was past time to do it, but I was tired of, you kind of get into a rut where you don't do anything and you do just enough to get by. You either stay in your comfort zone or you hustle a little bit harder and you surpass that. You bust through the pipes, right? And a lot of times when I think about it, when I'm training clients, we as people gravitate to what is comfortable for us, what's easy for us, what we are tangibly able to execute, whether it's within a certain period of time or the effort that we invest into life, right? And I found myself kind of doing that. I stuck around in the amateur division for fighting because it was comfortable. I knew the process. I knew when I felt like fighting, I could jump into XYZ on a show. I knew about what I was going to spend for that, how much time I was going to be away from my business. This part, I was tired of waking up first thing in the morning or in the middle of the night and thinking about that dream I had, which was ultimately fighting in a professional field and putting my hands up in victory and wearing that belt. After so many times of waking up to your own dream, that poof, be gone type of action comes into effect. And it's time to make that next move. The fear is going to be there. The unknown of that is going to be there as well. The investment, knowing how much you have to be able to input, whether that's money, time, energy, and then your whole group around you. All of those are imperative to the success that you wish to achieve. But ultimately, it's your own hustle.
Absolutely. And Suzana, like, this is why I take a step back and I say, like, I'm so thankful for all the, not only just on the boxing side, but just like life that you've been able to teach me, because you really tackled it. It's fear, it's the unknown, and it's the investment. When I look back at how I started Fresh FP&A, my own global fractional CFO and advisory service company, like, to me, it wasn't, I've always been like not a fearful person. So it wasn't that criteria for me. The second thing is like, I'm pretty comfortable with the unknown. Like, being in finance and leading growth organizations, there's always uncertainty and challenge. So like, I've been able to like embrace the unknown. I think if I was to break down what those were for me in starting Fresh FP&A, it was really like, I remember having the conversation with my sister, my twin sister, Victoria Ortega. And, I kind of was at this fork in the road in my career. And I was like, man, do I still go after this? Do I go build it? And it took her telling me, she says, Chris, when are you going to start chasing purpose over praise? When are you going to start chasing impact over income, right? And when are you going to start chasing people over profit, right? Like, not to say throughout my career I was always motivated by money, but coming from a finance background, I was always like, yeah, I like to be the top of the top, right? I like to, do these certain things. And when it really broke down for me on that, it was, most of my professional background, I worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? So I was always used to being in that leap of faith, take the challenge. And I found like the biggest hurdle for me to get over was, man, it's okay to fail. Like once I accepted failure as an opportunity to learn, and once I remember fighting with you, and that was always one thing that you taught me was like, Chris, it's not a loss if you learn from it, right? And
Yeah.
when I developed that mindset to say, man, if I lost, but I took a lot of learning from it, I took ways that I can get better, it's never really a loss. So I took that leap of faith saying, man, if this thing completely failed, if Fresh FP&A failed and I wouldn't go with my tail between my legs, I would say, man, I've learned a lot through that situation, right? And I know that I would have other avenues to explore. So I love that really three-pronged approach that you mentioned: fear, the uncertainty of the future, and getting over that investment. Now, I want to dive into one of those because I think investment's a big one in people taking the leap of faith, right? Like you have a family, you have Lennox and your daughter, right? I remember they were little nuggets, and now Lennox is a grown man wrestling now. Olivia's a young lady. But when you think about that investment leap, talk about that from not only a financial perspective, but there's time investment. There's a lot of investment that you've made and sacrifices that you've made. So tell a little bit more about that investment side.
So for those individuals who are considering whether or not they want to go out on their own and do work as a self-operating business, for me, I'm very thankful, and every day I always make this notation. The way I've operated for the past 12 years, SRG Boxing Gym, has provided me the opportunity to participate with my kids in school activities, whether that's during the daytime or after hours at sporting events. It is a juggle, right? Because sometimes that means I got to wake up earlier to do my morning workouts before they take off for school and train clients in between, and maybe take a lunchtime workout in the mix, back to pickup duty, and then back into the workouts again in the evening time, and finishing the night with my own workouts. As an athlete, you invest yourself accordingly as you have that time frame. But as a business owner, it's early mornings and long nights pretty consistently. And when you find yourself not playing in those roles, but rather easily, comfortably, taking the work hours when you want and taking those breaks out, you got to recognize that not all money is good money, but when you lay low too long, time passes by, opportunities pass by, and then money passes you by, right? So identifying, like my old coach used to say, analyze, realize, and recognize all things at all times.
Nice.
That is like, put that in your pocket and serve it to yourself when you need it, serve it to others, because that applies in the ring and out of the ring, right? Just because you see a knockout shot doesn't necessarily mean you ought to take that mix. Sometimes you've got to look for a side-to-side angle that will open up a category of opportunities. So when it comes to business and juggling the parent role, I'm appreciative of what I've been able to develop here, but I also know, and they know, that sometimes mom is just straight focused in work. Creating this promotion company, I'm definitely maximize much more with my time, but they always know that I'm going to be there for every activity that they have. And that just might mean that I work a little longer in that daytime, in that late hours. But I never miss anything for them, whether it's school, sports, or if they forgot their lunch and I got to pick it up and take it to them.
Suzana, man, like I love how you talked and broke that down, like to that, analyze, realize, and what was the third one?
Yeah, analyze, realize, and recognize. All
there it is. And I mean, that is fire. Analyze, realize, and recognize, right? And that investment, like you talked about, it's a balance. And the other thing that I gravitated towards that you said was specifically about, when you're connecting, and it as an entrepreneur myself, man, like usually Tuesdays and Thursdays are my long days. Because I lead a global business, I'm up early in the morning on Tuesdays and Thursdays to meet my Europe team. I'm late at night to meet my APAC team over in Australia. So really like you find a way to get in your groove. And the second thing that I really love that you said is like that, looking for that opportunity. Sometimes I think entrepreneurs, we're too decisive and we jump at the first opportunity that we get. That if we were a little patient, like you said, like wait for that shot, see how that opens up, it could have created more opportunities for you. So
Yes.
yeah, like that investment, I know from my side, it's always, I don't have a family, I don't have kids and things like that, but balancing, the community activists that I do, the partnership that I have with you, clients, even my own like fitness levels, right? Like I know Thursdays are my long days and the Golden Gloves are starting tonight. So I'm like, all right, I gotta tidy up this schedule to make sure that I could go see that piece of it. So that investment, the major point around that investment side, it's not just financial, which we're going to get into here, but it's time, it's energy, it's
Yeah.
also support. It's also being very clear with people to say, hey man, like this is the time I have allocated towards it. And one thing I've learned in my journey, and I don't know if you struggle with this too, is sometimes I think people don't have that same value of time that I do, right? And I'm like, look, man, my time, I'm not saying my time is more valuable than yours, but I also need to say is like, I can't be spending 6 hours on something. Like you may have that luxury and that opportunity to do that, but that's a big time commitment for me. Like that's big to be able to do
And I
that.
think
So
that's important for people to realize also is that, when I first started my business, when I first started personal training, I was available all the time. Like, oh, you want to get at 5 a.m. training? I'm not a 5 a.m. person. Okay, I'll show up. I'll make it work. But nobody respects your time like you respect your time. And once you demand yourself in a certain bracket style, as far as here are my work hours, or here's my price is my price. You have to set your boundaries properly. And so when I first started, I just, I was always available and I got burnt out to a degree, right? I'm just always working. If I have an appointment with you at 9 a.m. to 9:30 and you roll in 15 minutes late, you know, it's easy to say, well, they're dedicated 30 minutes. They showed up 15 minutes late. I have to push an extra 15. No, you don't have to push an extra 15. Time is important, and it's just as important for you as an entrepreneur to demand other people respect that same time frame, because you might have the next client or next opportunity, next appointment. So it's important to set those boundaries and to demand that the people that you work with respect that as well. If that means you get a
absolutely.
15-minute special because you're 15 minutes late of your 30 minutes, then that's just what it is. And eventually they're going to learn or they're going to find out, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think boundary setting in building a growth business, building a small business. Suzana, I love this topic because I struggled with this in starting the business. Like when I started Fresh FP&A and we started building momentum, I started bringing on other fractional CFOs to kind of help build our portfolio. I was like all over the place. I was doing way too much, and I knew, and I was self-aware, Suzana, that I had to take a step back and say, if I continue to go down the way that I'm going, I'm not going to show up effectively for my family. I'm not going to show up my best for my team. I'm not going to be able to show up best for our clients. I need to find a way to regulate balances. And I did a subtle thing, right? And this may sound, for all the business owners, CEOs, and founders that are looking at this, right? One of the biggest boundary setting things that I did that crazy helped my like time management was, I remember I used to have a lot of introductory conversations, which I still do, right? I have a calendar link. So that's time where people can go book time with me. I would have that time open all day, right? So if you want to book a time with me at 9 o'clock and you want to book a time with me at 4 or 3:35, it was like I gave unlimited flexibility of when my clients, when my team, my prospects, partners, everybody that I was working with that I share my calendar link with, I gave them like, it was like 9 to 7 o'clock. You can do it whenever. And I found myself in moments where I always had to pit and start. Like, I'm like, I really got deep into something, but man, I got like 2 30-minute meetings and one of my mentors shared with me, he says, Chris, I guarantee you one of the best ways to feel like you have more boundary and control of your time is to block out certain times of your day that you have these conversations. And Suzana, the moment that I did that, where I was like, okay, 10 to 12, I'm going to have for this. I'm going to have 3 to 5 be for this. I'm going to have this whole block where no meetings are scheduled. I'm going to get my team on Fridays to have what we call building time, where it's time that they can just spend in free thought, working with clients or building out things. And once we implemented that, I felt this relief of like, man, I feel better balanced because I know once I get through this period of time, I'm going to have this time to focus. If I have to do client work or CEO level work, and that was clutch. And it was such a small thing. It was such a small thing. I still had the availability and access. But to your point that you mentioned, I set those boundaries with myself and with the people that I want to serve to say, this is the time, energy, and effort and focus that I'm dedicating to spend in that thought. Because as a small business owner like yourself, we wear all the hats. Like I'm I'm working with clients, I'm working with legal people, I'm working with salespeople, I'm working with HR, I'm working with our development team, I'm working with our IT team, I'm working with my marketing team, I'm working with sales. Like I'm constantly working with so many different people that I want to make sure that when I show up and allocating this time that you show up effectively.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to remember that we all go through seasons, right?
Facts.
Like today, I worked out with my coach about an hour ago, 90 minutes before I got on here. And I noticed that my workout today was not on point. And I've been so busy in the past 10 days that last week and today's workout they were off. I'm doing too much. And so for me, before jumping on here, I told myself, I need to reevaluate what my schedule is like here in these next 7 weeks before I fight, that I need to make some adjustments to ensure that I am not losing myself in my preparation. And it's just as important to recognize who your clients are, right?
Yeah.
We've been able as SRG Boxing Gym to operate for the past 12 years. We operated through the COVID pandemic completely virtually. I did not lose any clients during that season, which is amazing and I'm very grateful for that. But remember that the right people who want to work with you will be willing to work with you to continue that relationship. So never feel as a business owner that you have to rip your own skin off and flip it backwards in order for people to stay with you, because the right people will stay with you no matter what kind of adjustments you need to create in your business. And also remember that there are people who are not going to make those adjustments, and that's life. That is the world we live in. Just make sure that you do not forget who you are in that process and sustain the process and the route that you created your business in initially. Because some people won't like the fact that you have to wear all the hats, but that's part of business. As a small business owner, we do wear multiple hats. And yet there are some times when you got to recognize when this is too much on your plate and you have to start outsourcing or bringing more people in to help you out on that journey.
Yeah, Suzana, I think like one of the things it's a great segue to what I want to talk about next, which are some of those pitfalls that you kind of encounter as a small business owner, right? And what you just talked about was scale, right? And I think where a lot of business owners and where I failed early on in my business is you have to look at all the different, and here's a practical tip that I give to everybody that helps me and my team, right? We spend probably about 2 weeks inside of a quarter where we like very detailed track our time. Basically every 15 minutes that me and my global team are working on, we spend a period for an entire week where we're documenting everything that we're doing in 15-minute increments. Now, the reason why we do that is because I want us quarterly to take a step back and look at all the time that we're spending, right? And if I'm spending an exorbitant amount of hours in an area of the business that I know that I could hire somebody or bring on somebody to has more value, they have more talent, they have more skills, they have more expertise, they have more knowledge in that area. And I can say, hey, I know that this is costing me on a weekly basis or on a 2-week basis, this is costing me like 8 hours, right? But if I had somebody focused on that and that was their passion, that's what they can do, that's what they're skilled at, then I get 8 hours of time back that I can reinvest in other value added of the business, right? And it's like putting people in the right position for them to be successful, right? It's like having a coach, right? That you like, man, I need time. Like I'm spending too much time with my coach on mids. Like we're spending too much time together just working mids. And you're like, Chris, I think my time spending with you could be working more on the fundamentals and pivoting on those hooks or those uppercuts, right? My time is more effective as a coach if I work with you on technique. So what I'm going to do is bring in somebody just to work mids with you. I'm not going to do it because I can go focus on something else. And I think tying that back to small business owners, a lot of times they don't realize that. You take that second, spend a week, spend 2 weeks, diagnose that time and look at it and say, where could I make marginal investments in my, you talked about this earlier, right? Where can I make those marginal investments? Because now it frees up my time to go focus on higher impact for my family, for my team, for my business, for all the other people that I have to serve, right?
Yes.
So my question to you specifically around that is, for those small business owners, founders looking at this, how should they be thinking about scale? Like, and how are you thinking about scale for your promotion company and SRG Boxing?
So I think it's important to know we're not good at everything, and that's totally fine, right? The things that you struggle with the most might be something that if you can't necessarily hire somebody full time, maybe it's a fractional duration, right? A fractional partnership that you incorporate. Maybe it's specifically for a task just to move to the next process that then you can continue on with. I think my promotion company, this is our flyer here that we've got this show coming up May 11th. The committee that I put into play for this is what has catapulted this into the direction that it is right now. I am not very good at graphic designing, sitting in front of the computer. I don't do anything that's in front of the computer very well, but I can take you through a workout and multiply the investment that you would have put in just lollygagging around in the gym, right? Same action when it comes to networking in the community. Recently, I did a Chamber of Commerce. After 12 years, I finally joined a chamber, which is amazing. But man, I told my husband, that is a lot of energy. You know, I could run out 6 miles, come into the gym, go 12 rounds inside the ring, and still work out for an hour of strength. My gas tank for that is good. To go out and talk to people for a long period of time, and that just it pulls different energy, right? So we all have to recognize what we're good at, and the things that you're not so great at, be willing to outsource that work. That doesn't necessarily mean that you ought not be mindful of what's going on, because ultimately it is your money and it is a representation of you and your business. But it's important to know when you need help and be willing to ask. I'm not very good at always asking when I should, but eventually, like anything, time under tension, pressure bust pipes, right? You want to make sure you're busting pipes the right way, and so you're producing something beautiful out of that. Otherwise, you're just hammering yourself down and down, and it's hard to come out of the gutters if you've been compressing yourself down for so long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, like, I think that's a fundamental fallacy a lot of small business owners, CEOs, and founders make, right? You don't bring in that opportunity to scale at the right time. Because I think there's and Suzana, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I think there's always a healthy balance of like, sometimes as a business owner, you can bring on resources too early, right? And that's even more detrimental to your business. You're like, man, I just want to, like, in that spur of just like, I don't want to do this. Let me just get somebody to do it. And you bring them on too early, or you don't have the processes, or you don't have the foundation set. And that doesn't really scale. And then you have the other shape of the bell curve, right? Where you bring them on too late. And now you're so entrenched into it that I always say, for all those people, listen, there's a great balance to have, right? Here's the thing. Say, for instance, like one of the things I did last year with my marketing team, and this is, we made a significant investment in our audio and our video quality And Suzana, I found myself at a point where I was like immersing myself into exposure triangles and aperture and shutter speeds and cameras and like, do I want this kind? Do I want a wide lane or a full frame? Like I was immersed in this understanding of audio and video. And I had to take a step back and I said, Chris, like it's okay to have like 60 to 80% knowledge into something, but like when I get to that point where I feel like I have a good baseline understanding, 60, 70% of something, that last 20%, that's where a lot of founders, CEOs, and small business owners make that mistake. Because that last 20% of knowledge, that's where you get really, really, really deep, right? But to me, I looked at it and said, hey, I can have these great conversations with my marketing team. We can make decisions. We can look at investment. We can look at the thing. But when it comes down to the very specifics, I'm going to empower them, enable them to be great, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend my time, energy, effort, resources, mental power for that last 20%. That to me is where that great reflection point happens. Like I can have conversations where I know if we're talking about this kind of camera, this kind of microphone, and this kind of interface, this kind of setup, this kind of thing, I can speak to it. But when it gets down to the details, I'm going to say, hey, this is super detailed. I empower you and I entrust you and have complete confidence in your leadership to guide us through this next 20%, right?
Yeah.
That's where you have that healthy balance. Because I see it with some of our clients. You know, we work with growing SMB businesses, SMBs meaning small to medium-sized businesses that we work with. It's always that right balance because sometimes they find it too late and it's like you talked about this earlier, you miss the opportunity, right? Sometimes they see that first opportunity, they jump right on it, that if we were just a little bit more patient inside the business, we could have had even more impact. So definitely finding the right cadence, and it varies for each entrepreneur. Like my cadence is going to be different than yours, than the person that's going to sit and watch this.
So this reminds me, in boxing, we talk about your area, your range, right? And so when it comes to a boxing ring, you've got the outside by the ropes. That's outside movement. When you take a step in, you're in mid-range, right? In mid-range, I can hit you with the jab and you can hit me with the jab, but I can easily move out of that jab so I don't get hit. Inside movement then is right, we're in telephone booth style. So I hit you, you hit me, we're yin yanging. You have to know when the time is right to be in which position, which also applies with business, right? If we're hanging out too long, trying to really understand the nitty gritty of something that has nothing necessarily to do with my operation, but maybe a part of my business somebody else is better at, there's no point in me staying in the middle too long. Get out and continue to make your moves accordingly. Everybody has a proper position for them to be beneficial to the whole unit. So know what you're great at, but understand when you're doing too much too long, and then get out so you don't get hit on the negative.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that analogy, right? Because it's like, but also at the same time, you can't be spending all your time out, outside. Just, you gotta, it's that beautiful balance between business and boxing that you literally just defined, right? When you're inside and rumbling and you're banging in there, you don't want to spend 12 rounds in that, right? Like, no, like the wear and tear that's going to have on your body, your everything. Your mind, everything is going to be, if you had to go a 12-round fight and all we're doing is banging on the inside, I don't think it's going to go 12 rounds. Somebody's going to get knocked out. But also the same goes, you can't spend your whole time on the outside. It's not going to be entertaining. You're not going to really push yourself. But having that beautiful balance and symphony of when to move inside, like one thing you always said, like move like soap in your business, right? You taught me this, right? It's like be soapy in there, right? Be on your feet, be on your toes, and then also keep your eyes open, keep your mind very open to be able to see these things, right? Because the same way in boxing, right? One of the things that you taught me and the fear that I had to get over was like being able to see the punches, right? Like you're seeing the punches come. I can slip, I can take, right? But what it took for me to develop that confidence and develop that skill is you got to get hit. You got to take some of those punches. You're not going to be able to see everything in boxing, just like the same way you're not going to be able to see every punch coming in business. But the key thing is like once you develop that muscle memory or that business memory, you can see those jabs coming. You can see that pitfall coming here. You can see those different things. And the more that you open up your insight and your focus, it kind of slows things down a little bit, you know?
Yeah, then you understand when you can make your moves by way of your feet and not necessarily always having to slip with your head. Your feet take you anywhere you want to go in life, right? So sometimes you got to know when you got to pick it up and make a different angle, take it from a different perspective. It'll change the whole game of life.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a key insight. Suzana, one other thing I want to talk to you a little bit about, right? Now we got May 11th coming up, right? May 11th, round one, Jefa Promotions. We got the pro card button down. I know I'm working with the team. And shout out, I want to take a second and shout out Lacey, Amy, Erica, Nicole, you as the leader, like everybody rallying around you. So I want to talk about May 11th, talk a little bit about the show, talk a little bit about the layout. What are you excited about? Give the viewers, and for those locally, that's going to be here in Indianapolis, May 11th at the Tyndall Armory, downtown in Indianapolis. Talk a little bit about that show and what you're excited about.
I'm excited to fight. That's number one, right? I'm excited to fight again. Let me say this before I get too detailed into it. In July, that would have been my last time fighting on a national platform. This door behind me, I actually broke 2 fingers, 3 of them, but I almost lost this finger. I was so bummed about it. I mean, talk about depression, right? It's easy, like I said, to stay low and just a woe is me type of mentality. Every time I put those gloves back on now, I'm so thankful for the body and how it continues to morph and help you out. Wherever your mind wants to go, your body is going to follow, which also means that wherever your mind sets the game plan up, all it takes is the action of yourself to put forth the effort to create your dreams. May 11th is part of my dream. My dream was to become a professional boxing promoter and a professional fighter. Both of those are going to happen on the 11th. And ultimately, the creation of the promotion company, La Jefa, means female boss. And I wanted to create this for an opportunity of other women to fight on a local platform and ultimately then eventually becoming into a national and international platform, women to fight on a card that is primarily a male dominant sport. And local fighters, again, it's really hard to fight on a local show in your hometown. So that's what this show is going to provide. Myself and 7 other professional fighters. We will start off with an undercard of amateur fighters because that's where everybody starts. We got to learn how to crawl and then walk before we can start sprinting. So I wanted to capture an opportunity for younger fighters. 2 out of my 3 fighters will be females, and give them an opportunity to fight on a big stage platform, because ultimately most of us want to be so successful, and no matter what you do, right? You don't just do stuff because I have a little bit of time on my hands. You do stuff normally because you had an interest in it and you really liked it, and your light then becomes into a little bit of a love. But when that love becomes a passion and becomes a lifestyle that you sleep it, you dream it, you live it, all of that is what this promotion company then has transpired for myself. So May 11th at the Tyndall Armory, the doors are going to open at 6 o'clock. The fights are going to start at 7 p.m. We've got 8 professional fighters, 3 on the undercard. It's going to be an amazing event. We call this first show round 1. We always want to win by way of knockout, right? But most fights take 3, 4, 6, 8, or 12 rounds. So this is one of a multiple series of shows.
Yeah, and for all those people, if you're not here in Indiana, there are sponsorship opportunities available. If you go to the website, which I'll drop in the description to here, I'll leave the website right here as well too. So check out this website, click here. You'll be able to get tickets. You can have, if you want to help support the event, there's sponsorship opportunities they help support. And Suzana, before we close off, this moment is going to live, I think, in history for me. And for me, I want to take a second and I want to pause and just say to you, for the echoes of time that this video is going to last and it's going to far outlive everything, I cannot put into words how thankful, appreciative, and impactful that you've been on my life, that you've been on my professional journey, my personal journey, everything. And I had a Facebook memory pop up, and it was my first time coming into SRG. I was depressed in boxing. I didn't want to do it. I was really at a bad stage, if I'm being honest, in life. Like, I was not at my best. And the moment that I came into SRG boxing, the moment that I came under your leadership and tutelage, just not only from a boxing perspective, but also the things you taught me in life that I can continue to carry in business, in everything that I do. And I just want to tell you, Suzana, I am so appreciative and thankful. And for all of those listeners and for everybody, like, connect, help, support everything that SRG Boxing and Training is doing. La Jefa Promotions, check us out. Come support. If you are here in Indianapolis, Indiana, come support. And one last thing, Suzana, one last piece of advice. Who's your favorite fighter of all time and why?
Myself. I am my favorite fighter, first and foremost. Um, Consistency, dedication, hard work, grit, all of that is me, right? Then if I had to pick someone thereafter, Ann Wolf is one of my favorite female fighters thereafter myself. She never takes a no. She's always looking for that opportunity. And Roberto Duran, he's one of my favorite fighters as well. Julio Cesar Chavez, he had a lot of fights. I could keep going on and on, but I'm going to say myself.
Man, Suzana, there's no better way to end that off than saying yourself. And I think to all those people, thank you so much for looking at this beyond the numbers. If you enjoyed and if you made it this far, make sure to smash that like button at the bottom. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Beyond the Numbers is a podcast that I do where I meet with so many different business leaders in all different kind of disciplines in all different industries, and we get beyond the finances and we get into building and growing SMB businesses to empower and enable you to be a better finance, business, and life professional. So, Suzana Rodriguez Griffin, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for everything. And I look forward to get back in the ring with you. We spar a little bit. I'm looking forward to having you beat me up. But Suzana, thank you so much for your time. And for all those that viewers, thank you so much. And as I always end, keep it pushing, never settle, and the best is yet to come. Let's get it, everybody. Thank you so much, Suzana.
Thank you.